Have you ever found yourself in a room full of strangers and you have no idea what to do? You're like, I'm sitting here by myself. I know I need to talk to somebody, but I don't know what to say. Well, my goal of today's video is to show you how to never have that problem ever again. Because trust me, it is awful. Now, the things I'm going to share with you today by no means is going to work every time, but it's going to increase your chances of connecting with way more people. This is just something I've done, and it's worked a ton for me. Who am I and why do I have the right to talk about this? Well, uh, I've done door-to-door sales for past 4 months, and I spoke to 1,000 strangers. So you know a thing or two about communicating with people that you don't know when you do it all summer long. So real quickly though, I want to talk about a little bit why this is important. Well, if you don't know how to talk to strangers, you are going to die alone and no one's going to love you. And you're going to go to bed one day and no one's going to be there. And when you're on your deathbed, you're going to be all alone. I'm partially a joke. There is some truth to it. But seriously though, the reason, guys, why you need to start talking to strangers is, well, I don't need to tell you. I'm sure you already know. It's the obvious things. You meet more people, right? Which means you'll have more opportunities to make money. You'll have more opportunities to meet lovers. And you'll have more opportunities to just build amazing connections and friendships with people that will last a lifetime. So, but really, I just want to give you guys a brief story on how this really changed my life. Sales. I have no idea where I would be without discovering it. And one day I was working out at the gym. I ended up meeting this guy named Matt. He's just doing some tricep push downs. I think he thought I was checking out his girlfriend because I was sitting there staring at him very meticulously, but it was just because he's a pro bodybuilder. And I've never seen anyone like this jacked, like my size. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is my potential. So, I was really excited. And then we started talking to each other. And long story short, he starts telling me, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I do high ticket sales for weight loss. And then I ended up getting into solar. And solar changed my entire life. And solar opened up so many doors for me. Even though my solar experience was terrible, I ended up getting screwed over extremely badly, and so did all my friends. But it was an amazing experience that made me the person who I am today. So, and that's just one of the connections. I met tons of millionaires from that. I would go to the gym, go up to them randomly, completely cold approach, and just start a conversation. You know, Same thing with a bunch of other people I know. Even today, I am meeting this guy that owns like 40,000 properties. Just think about that. 40,000 properties. That's a lot of money. And he's not my friend. So if you want to meet people that own 40,000 properties and you want to become their friends and you want to have the girl of your dreams, then you need to watch this entire video, because I'm going to make sure you never have to deal with that terrible feeling of not knowing what to say ever again. So let's go a little bit about mindset, guys. When it comes to having a conversation, don't go in there being negative Nancy, okay? Never, ever, before I go into anything, never when you're first meeting someone, open up with something negative, unless you're a politician. Because if you're a politician, that's a little different. Sometimes. I'm not a politician. I'm not too sure how accurate that is. But in general, you don't want to open up with something negative, because as soon as you say that, first impressions really matter. So if you open up with something negative, people are then going to see you as a negative person. And guess what, guys? Surprise, surprise. No one likes negative people. I don't like negative people. You don't like negative people. And that cat in the street don't like no damn negative people. So you want to try to be positive. When it comes to body language, guess what? Smile. Show me some teeth. Guys, always smile. Try to have open body language. And just a little thing, when you're talking to someone, you want to try to mirror them off rip. If they're talking, you'll be able to tell in the first couple seconds. If they're talking slow, you want to talk slow. If they're talking fast, you want to talk faster. If they're loud, be louder. If they're quiet, be quiet. You always want to try to match them as much as possible. Same thing with body language. I would say, don't really focus on that so much, because once you learn what to say and how to say it, things will transfer naturally. So I just want to give that's pretty much all you guys need to know. And really just when in doubt, maintain childlike curiosity. You know how kids ask why to everything? Keep that in mind anytime you meet anyone. I don't want to give you guys too many things, so then you're going to get overwhelmed. So I would say this is really the main body of the video. So when it comes to starting a conversation, right, this is usually the part that people dread. Before we get into that, I just want to go a little bit over the framework. So the way I see it is, this by no means is perfect. I literally made this in like 20 minutes, but I do think it goes a pretty good way of doing it. When it comes to every conversation, I really think there's like 5 main steps. We have an opener with question. We then go deeper into that question. And then usually after we ask that first question, we can usually gauge people's interests. This is something that more just becomes a science. Like, for example, if someone is like kind of giving you like one-word answers, even though you're going deeper, and they're just being really vague, or and they're like giving like yeah. You know, like they're like yappers. All they say is yup. They say yup to everything, one word answers. Get the hell out of there. That's usually a sign that people don't want to be bothered. And then from there, there's an exit a conversation. When you're exiting a conversation, the way I see it is, I really see like there's two options. You can either get contact information because this is someone you want to stay in contact with, or you say you never talk to them ever again, and you're just happy that you had the chance to talk to them because you were able to improve your social skills. So this is now we have this framework. This is how we start the conversation. Okay, so some of my favorite ways to open a conversation are with compliments, saying, it's like a what's it. For example, let's say someone has a watch. You're like, okay, what's that? Like, what kind of watch is that? Or they have a nice haircut. Oh my goodness, that's kind of that's kind of both combined together. That's a what's it and a compliment together. Oh my goodness, I love your hair. What kind of hairstyle is that? So you can sort of get fancy with it, and like jokes. You know, one of the favorite things, one of the favorite things I love to do when I go in an elevator is, elevators are usually awkward. I go in the elevator, I'm like, I just want to thank everybody for coming to the meeting. And then it always gets a chuckle. And then from there, people are happier. And then you can start to have some small talk. You might only be in the elevator for 30 seconds, but guess what? The elevator ride will stop being awkward. Unless you're in an elevator with a bunch of, stick ups and they don't get the joke. That's okay. Most people do. And of course, opener is just a question. The main thing I want to be focused on today, really get this 1 point home. If you get this 1 point home, your entire life will change. I'm telling you because I used to be the most introverted kid on planet Earth. So many people are so focused on what to say, but it's more about being indifferent. For example, the most basic question in the world: hey, how are you doing? What do most of the people say? They're like good or bad or it's okay. Say something like this: oh, I'm just trying to stay out of trouble. It's unconventional, and it makes people either it always gets a reaction on them because most people don't say it. Just be indifferent. Or for example, even if someone's gonna say, "Oh, hey, how's your day going?" This is one of the main things to keep conversation going. It's a give and a take. You give information, you get information from them. So when in doubt, just talk about yourself. I don't think it's the best way to do it. And then from there, you can usually gauge it. Because if someone really wants to talk to you, they will then ask a question about something you just said. So for example, someone asks you, let's just say, you're like, hey, how you doing? They're like, good. And they then ask you, hey, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm doing great, because I just got back from Florida and I'm so happy to be back home. And then you'll have something to work with. Or what you can do is after you get there, then you can then re-loop and ask them a question. Have you, for example, you're like, how are you? Like, oh, I'm doing great. I just got back from Florida a couple of days ago and I'm so excited to be back home. Have you ever been to Florida before? Right then and there, you put the pressure right, well, not the pressure, but you put things back on them. When in doubt, remember this: the person who is asking questions is the person who is in control. I'm not saying you guys need to be like, oh my God, no, control, he's all about manipulating people. Guys, in the beginning, when you first start talking to someone, it's going to be hard to get the conversation to keep going. But if you can ask questions, keep them engaged, eventually it's just going to become natural. So when it comes to openers, like I said, complaints, compliments, you know, ask them questions like, what's that? Make a joke, or just ask some basic question. Now, this is my favorite thing to do. If we notice here, the framework is we have the opener followed by a question. So what I like to do is, these are just some examples. I actually ended up learning this from Jeremy Miner. This is actually used for sales. So if you've heard these before, it's because they're from him. But this is something very important. There's something called verbal pacing. The slower, if you say things, for example, you know how we've heard people say, it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. When I slow down, what I'm saying sounds more important. But if I say it when I talk slowly, it sounds more important. It doesn't have as much weight to it. So it's more about how you talk. It's about the pace, the fluxion. And I know this is a lot of information, so watch this video again. But what will happen is eventually you'll focus on one thing at a time, and then eventually everything will become better. So some of my favorite questions I ask after I say something basic, like I'm like, for example, this is something that just happened to me. Someone was eating. I noticed that they were getting just vegetables. The person asked them, because I go to college and I was in the dining hall, and the girl was getting just vegetables. I'm like, and the person offered her fish, and she's like, no, thank you. I know I'm like, are you a vegetarian? Right then and there, opener, question. I opened it with the question. I'm like, are you a vegetarian? She's like, yeah, I just don't like eating meat. And then what I did is I then talked about me. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. My mom's actually a vegetarian. She's been like a vegetarian my entire life. I was just wondering. I mean, I know she became a vegetarian because she didn't like the way that animals were being treated and like for the health reasons. Can you tell me a little bit more why you became a vegetarian? And just like that, I was right in the pocket. Conversation. And then sure enough, we had a great conversation. So that's what I mean. Like, when in doubt, open up with a question, a joke, a compliment, or like ask, what's that? And then from there, you start to tie questions and you start to go deeper. Even another example, right? So these are the questions, just to read them. We say, could you tell me more about that? Or how do you mean by that? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Or you can say, when you say, repeat back what they said, what do you mean by that? Very basic. All we're doing is asking why. Like, why without saying why? Hell, even if you don't know what to say, you can always say why. The only thing I would suggest is don't say why over and over again, because eventually it's going to sound obnoxious. You're like, well, they're like, how are you? You're like, my day is good. They're like, why is your day good? They're like, well, because of this, this, and this. And then you then say why again. It just becomes annoying. So don't be the why guy. That's why I have a can, I have a how, and a what. And you could even add why. You have 4 different ways to basically ask the same exact question, but it sounds different every time. So we then have this. We have the opener, we have a question, and we then go deeper. So the opener and the question are kind of tied together. But what I like to tell people is when in doubt, ask a question. It can be anything, like literally anything. Everyone's walking around with shoes on. I don't care if you know everything on planet Earth there is to know about shoes. You could very easily, in doubt, say, what kind of shoes are those? Just find something to ask. Some kind of question. One of my favorites is, are you new here? It doesn't matter where you are. You can always ask, are you new here? And they'll be like, no. They'll be like, yeah, I am new here. They'll be like, no, I'm not new here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not new here either. And then it's like a laugh. Or like, yeah, I am new. So that's just like one of the questions I like to ask a lot. Now, really, when it comes to listening, it really just is just really you just want to. This is like just a framework, guys. You just open the conversation with something like hello, hi, something basic. You then have a question. You then go deeper on that question by asking follow-up questions. So, for example, right, I say, are you a vegetarian? She's like, yeah, I'm a vegetarian. Surface level answer. And I then say, oh, that's cool. My mom's vegetarian. I'm now giving her information. I then ask, what made you want to go vegetarian? And she'll then say, the health benefits. I was like, huh, that's interesting. I mean, you must have a reason for saying that. What is it about your health that you're concerned about? Or how do you feel that being vegetarian will benefit your health? She'll then give me a deeper answer. And that's what we're doing. We're having an opener, we're asking a question, we're then going deeper into the previous question. And what happens when you understand people more? You can start to have deeper conversations. What do deeper conversations equate to? Better relationships. Then from there, you can usually what I have to do is after the second or third question, you'll then start to gauge interest. Like, okay, well, as I'm talking to this person, is this person like trying to back up? Are they trying to walk away? Are they mirroring my body language? Like, what's going on? Because from there, these are things you can tell if they're interested. I think we could all tell when we've talked to someone, we just know they don't want to be bothered. Just leave, okay? So when it comes to leaving a conversation, one of the favorite things to say is, it was a pleasure talking to you, but I actually got to get going. Super polite. People aren't gonna be like, oh my god, he's such an asshole. And that's pretty much it, guys. Now, I know this may sound, intimidating, but don't let it bother you guys, because all you got to do is just keep in mind it's going to take you multiple attempts. You're going to have to do it over and over and over again. But eventually, you're going to become a natural at it. I'm not even kidding you. When I was cold calling, when I was door knocking, I was talking to 10 strangers a day. When I got on the phones, I was talking to 50 strangers a day. Now, I talk to 10 people a day just for fun. And I'm telling you guys, I've made some of the most amazing relationships ever. And what's going to happen is eventually you're going to become so good that you're going to be able to choose who you want to be friends with and who you don't want to be friends with. And that's such a great thing to happen because you're going to stop going through life with this scarcity mindset and just realize that people are abundant, guys. There's like 8 billion of us. And also keep that in mind too. If someone doesn't like you, who cares? Because guess what? You got a whole another 7.9999999 billion people to talk to. So just don't overthink it, guys. If there's